listening to the Doing Motherhood podcast, where we talk all things Black mothers today. What's the goings on, y'all? It has been a fast and furious weekend into this week. I feel like I'm just like shuffling one place to the next to the next. But everything has just been moving really fast. So I want to fill you in. Last week, I announced my new doula training. So my new doula training is called Hospital Doula Training Co. And the mission of Hospital Doula Training Co. is to train new doulas who are familiar and comfortable inside of hospital spaces so that they can, one, not only provide, excellent care and services to their clients, knowing that they have a great understanding and can build relationships within the medical community, but also serve as patient navigators for their clients, helping them understand the complexities of the medical industry and those spaces where they'll be receiving prenatal care and, having their babies inside of the hospital. So just serving, giving that traditional doula support, but also making sure that their clients are well taken care of and know how to be good healthcare consumers. So check out the website. It's hospitaldoulatrainingco.com. And you can also look at the Instagram page, which is at Hospital Doula Training Co. And I'll be filling you in with more information to go from there. If you're interested in becoming a doula, applications are open now until December 15th. So check it out, send in an application. We can't wait to connect with you. On the personal front, I talked to you guys before about my son, Bryce, going away to college next year. So this past weekend, we were in Denver on his recruitment process, and I got to see the campus and meet all the coaches. And, I'm in my feels. I am definitely in my feels, but being able to be there and meet the staff and, learn about all of the great resources that are going to be on that campus for him just kind of solidified for me that he's going to be in a great place and a great space, and there's not a whole lot I'm going to have to worry about. So it's all but official at this point. And so we're just, I'm ready to send my baby bird off so he can move on with, bigger and brighter things for himself. We're all so excited for him. So that's what's going on in my life. Today, we have a special episode. We're completing the healing series. So I can't wait to get in and talk to the guests that we have on air today. But before we move over there, I want to remind you that you can always find us on all major podcasting platforms. And you can also watch the Doing Motherhood podcast on YouTube if you prefer to watch your podcasts instead of listening to them. So there's plenty of options for you to get into the podcast. If you would please leave us a review. I did see I got a review. I was like, oh, that's so nice. I got my one review. I'm so excited about it. But I would appreciate if you guys would go to wherever you listen to the podcast, leave us some stars, leave us a review, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like so we can make those improvements. And of course, we are so grateful if you would share this podcast within your networks, whether it's your friends, mothers that you know, who are, just looking for some motherly advice and need a little bit of uplifting once in their week. That's what we're here for. So I'm excited about connecting with you. Can't wait to. All right, the 411. We are here today we're talking about healing. So this is the last part of our healing series, part 3. And if you haven't already listened to the first 2 episodes, the first episode of this healing series was my own story. I shared with all our listener friends the learning or the healing journey that I've been on, and just some of the bumps in the road, but also the victories that I found along the way. And in the second episode, we spoke with my Reiki healer, Alicia Jackson, who dropped us tons of gems. So if you didn't catch that one, make sure you go back and listen to what she had to share with us. And so today I have therapist based out of Dallas Fort Worth area. Her name is Laura Butler, and she'll be talking to us today about more conventional therapy and what that looks like for, especially for Black mothers, right? So kind of the things that catch us up and why we think therapy might not be for us, but we want to let you know just how much it can and will help. So, Laura Butler is a mom, a wife, and a therapist. She's licensed as a marriage and family therapist associate in the state of Texas. She has a private practice where she provides psychotherapy to couples, families, and individuals. She was born in Mississippi, but currently resides in DFW area of Texas. Hi, Laura. Thank you for being here today.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing fine.
Good, good. We're so happy to have
How are
you
you?
on. I'm doing good, ready to get into this conversation about therapy because like I've told our listener friends before, honey, I stay on a therapist's couch.
Good.
I am
That's good to
always
hear.
100% proponent of therapy. I have to watch myself sometimes because people will come and say things like, what do you think? And how should I fix this? Or how should I go about? I'd be like, girl, go to therapy. And sometimes that sounds rude. I have to be careful. Girl, go to therapy.
Yes. Yes.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Wrong with it.
What was that?
I say it's nothing wrong with therapy.
Nothing wrong with it at all. And that's what we're here to talk about. And, let's start there, because a lot of times we hear people say in the Black community, there's still a stigma about mental health and like seeking help for that. Are you finding that that's still a big stigma that we're fighting?
Yes. And I know that sometimes therapy is weaponized. Like, for example, people are quick to say more than not in a negative way, you need to go to therapy because you're crazy or there's something wrong with you. Or on the other hand, if someone says that they're in therapy, they're like, you crazy? What's wrong with you? And not realizing that they're playing into the stigma that is surrounded with therapy, and like, who is it for or what does it do, in all things like that. Therapy is looked at like it's shameful or it's a dirty word when it's not. Therapy is cool, like it's for everyone. It's not for quote unquote the crazy, or if something is going on bad. Therapy is a good resource just to maintain your mental and improve your mental capacity to handle things. And therapy has a lot more to offer also.
And
it's not just as far as
what those things that they offer specifically for Black mothers, because I know I listen to a lot of moms that I talk to, and even if we're like going through our day and we're juggling work and we're juggling our own health, we need to work out, we need to eat right, we're juggling our children's schedules, their schooling, their homework, their extracurricular activities, you have what's going on at work, church, so many things. So how do you tell Black mothers specifically, like, how does therapy help out with all of those things that we're juggling?
Okay, so of course the work that I do with clients differ depending on their personal goals and what they personally have going on. But I can say some common work that I find myself doing with Black moms is self-care, the importance of them showing up for themselves, prioritizing themselves, and them being able to say no. I teach my clients that if you say yes to everyone. I want you to think about how many times you're saying no to yourself, because essentially you giving all of your time to these other people. Who is it that kind of end up falling short on the back end? Not them, because you've already given all your time to them. It's you. So, and that's a big one. Oh, and boundaries. I know that, boundaries, that's a buzzword going on now. But yes, boundaries, because those are also important. They protect you, whether it's your time, your sanity, whatever. And I think it's safe to say that, as a lot of Black moms, it's more of, you struggle with being everything to everybody. And that's good that you want to be there for other people. But what about you, sis? Like, you deserve some of you also. And so that's some of the work that I find myself doing with a lot of Black moms, because but sadly, believe it or not, when they don't show up for everyone, it's more of them feeling bad for it. It's not that, I chose me today. And it's a struggle.
I was just talking with one of my girlfriends about how, and she said, we were, having that mom talk, and we're saying, the times that we take out time for ourselves, we're happy that we set that time aside, and we're going to do what we're going to do. But still in the back of our mind, we're like, oh, but the kids, but okay, well, now that I've taken this time for myself, I need to do a little bit more when I get back to them.
Yes, try to make up for it. And I'm like, okay, if you're making up for it, it kind of defeats the purpose of you going to take the time to yourself to begin with, because I took this time, now I'm going to run myself raggedy because I took that time. It's again feeling like self-care is being selfish.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's a necessity. If anything, you're being selfish if you don't practice self-care. Because if you don't practice self-care, you can't be all the things that you want to be to other people. Personally, I tell clients all the time, I don't have the luxury of not taking care of myself, because if I don't take care of myself, I can't show up to therapy being a good therapist for you. If I don't take care of myself, I can't be a good wife, a good mom. I jokingly but seriously, I'll tell my husband, like, okay, I'm going to take such and such time so I can be a good wife to you. Because like I have to, like my son, I was like, okay, it's mommy's me time. He's a toddler, so he gets it sometime, but sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes it's making my me time to we time, but it's still, just showing that I'm not a machine. And I give my Black moms that also, because you're not a machine, ma'am. You have to take rest, and that's okay. You're human.
And that's, that's really, it's a really important point, that idea of making sure you're not working yourself like a machine or working yourself down to the bone, because like you said, if we're not even taking care of ourselves, how much are we really offering to the people in our lives? And how are we showing up for them, right? Because it's like one thing to be there and be your full, so now you have the extra to give to other people. But if you're showing up depleted, that's when we're showing up angry. We're going off on folks. We get real short and snappy. And so it's like, that's not good for anybody, and not for ourselves either. So Laura, how do we find the right therapist for us? Like what is like steps 1, 2, and 3 to finding the right therapist for yourself?
Okay, so there are a lot of platforms out there, and there are some really good platforms that are good with marketing their Black therapists. So it's easier for African American Black people to find people that look like them. Some of those would be therapy for Black girls is a good one. Therapies for Black men, that's also a good one. Clinicians of color, Black female therapists, insights like that to be able to find people that look like you. And when searching for a therapist, first thing first, I think it will be good to know whether or not you feel like finding a therapist that looks like you is for you, because that makes a big difference. Next, you will want to kind of ask yourself some questions when you are searching, like, can I trust this person? Because you have to trust your therapist in order to show up as your full self. Because if you don't have that therapeutic rapport with your therapist, it's like, I might give you a little bit here and there, but I'm not going to give you all of it.
And you can't really,
that's
it's like cheating yourself when you do that, right?
yeah, exactly. It's a big hindrance. You have to be able to feel like you can tell your therapist your entire experience, because that's what therapy is for. Your story is your story. It should be heard. You shouldn't have to sugarcoat things. So that's a big one. So whether you find someone that looks like you or not, you have to know whether they're culturally competent. Like, do they respect your culture, your identity, without trying to change or dismiss those things about you? How this person responds to feedback. And kind of a great thing to do, I tell people all the time, a lot of therapists offer a consultation where, most of the time now it's probably via phone, but it's just kind of a more informal conversation, so that you can get a feel for this person and be able to ask this person questions and things that are important to you, whether they are these are areas that they're comfortable working in, or do they specialize in these areas? That's very important. And lastly, when you're looking for a therapist, find a therapist. It's always important to know that you're never stuck with this person if you feel that they are not a good for you.
Yes.
You can fire your therapist, and a good therapist won't be offended, because they know that every therapist is not for every client, and every client won't be for every therapist. So if that therapist is not working out for you, it's okay to switch. I would rather a client switch than to just end therapy altogether because they felt that it sucks.
That's a good point that you bring up. Sorry to cut you off. That reminds me of, I watched this show on HBO called In Treatment with Uzo Aduba as the therapist. Isn't she amazing in that role? I love it.
Yes.
But there was that episode where, she was basically firing herself as the therapist because she realized where she overstepped, like an important boundary. But that was such an important visual to see, right? To see that, like, yes, there are times where we might realize, you know what, this really isn't the right person for me. Or the therapist might realize, I'm not actually helping this person progress through their journey. So we need to make some changes. But nobody should carry any guilt about that, or feel like, feelings need to be taken out of the way. And it's more about, what do I need? And am I getting what I need from this service? Yeah.
Yes, that is important, because sometimes a therapist will see that, okay, I'm not the best therapist for you, and that's okay. I need to be okay with saying that. So ultimately, you get the healing and get the progress that you need for you. Kind of put ego aside.
Yes, all egos go to the side. This has been really great information. Is there any last information you want the audience to know, whether it's like one last pointer about therapy, or do you want to share, any information about your practice that you would like our listener friends to know?
So as far as picking a therapist, I would just like to reiterate again that if the therapist is not working out for you, it could very well be the therapist and not the therapeutic progress all together. So if you don't find a therapist that works for you, it's okay. You might have to go through one or two to get to the right one. So continue to look for the right therapist if you are seeking therapy, because you're seeking therapy for a reason. Don't let the first therapist you talk to that didn't work for you just derail your plans on therapy.
I like that. I really love that as a piece of advice, because like you said, you have to know what it is that you need or what you're looking for. And yeah, like give it a couple of times, give it some time. How much time do you think it takes for people to really start seeing that progress?
Now that's a trick question, and I'll tell you why. So for therapy is not a magic cure. It takes some time and some work in order for you to feel like therapy is quote unquote working. Like in a big thing to understand is that in order to see progress, it takes work on your end, because a lot of the work a lot of the progress you will see, yes, as your therapist, I can pick up on things that, like, okay, I see you. Do you note that that's progress? And I'll point it out to them. But also, a lot of the progress will happen outside of sessions, because it's outside of sessions where you're able to practice those skills that we talked about and learn inside of sessions. So when your therapist gives you homework, it's not that we are attempting to torture you. It's for a reason. So that's first things first. But when it comes to as far as how much time to allow, I for my clients, I have them to ask themselves some questions to track their progress rather. Some questions being like, okay, am I beginning to feel less hopeless? Am I learning a new skill? Is my way of thinking changing? Is my therapist giving me techniques and practical skills that I'm being able to use outside of sessions? And is my relationship with myself and others changing? Because, as you start to work on yourself, your relationship with yourself will change, but the relationship with people around you would change too. And sometimes I have to let my clients know that it's not, those relationships may not always change for the better. They may get more, they may go downhill, but that's not a bad thing. It's that you're progressing and you're growing, and some of those things that people did before is like boundaries up. I'm not going to do that with you. So that's a good tell. And another thing is a good tell for as far as progress when working with my clients is that some of my clients tell me that they hear my voice between sessions. And that's good, because they're hearing my voice asking themselves, okay, what would my therapist say or do? Or it's because also something I said either hit home, it was memorable, it was helpful, and it stuck with them. And that tells me that progress is being made. As far as the time to allow it, I would just say that give it a few sessions with your therapist. Now, if you're feeling like it's not working, your therapist should know that also, because again, sometimes it may not be therapy, it may be your therapist.
Okay.
And that's no shade, because sometimes practices that we use, methods that we use, maybe it's not necessarily working with this client. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, I think you have dropped us. Listen, listener friends, I think she has given us so many gems today. My biggest takeaway is it takes work. So it's not just going
Uh,
and sitting on the couch and talking about all the things and then walking out the door and waiting for the next week. Like, you have to walk out the door
yeah.
and do some of that work and apply what you're learning in therapy to your
Mhm.
practice. Laura, it has been so nice. Let our listener friends know where they can find information about you and your practice.
Okay, so information about my practice can be found at on my website, which is www.laurabutlercounseling.com. And I am on Facebook and Instagram, and my @ will be at Laura Butler LMFTA.
Love it. And you might not have caught it, in case you didn't catch it earlier. What Laura shared with us is that even though she is in the DFW area, she's licensed throughout the state of Texas. And so she
Yeah,
can offer you virtual services as well. If you would like to try her out as your therapist, honey, go check out that website and
yeah,
see what happens. Thank you so
yeah.
much for being here. I
Thank
appreciate your
you.
expertise.
Thank you for having me.